Good afternoon, everyone. Michael Worth with Worthwhile Leather. This video here, I am going to cover some of just a very bare bones basic tools that you need to do leather work. On one of the groups on Facebook that I belong to, I see this question pop up a lot. What tools do I need to start out in leather working? And some people have a budget to fully equip a full shop, and then some people are working on a limited budget. I am going to go over the bare bones tools for a limited budget that you need to do just about any leather project out there. Now, some of these are going to be without less bling and the dots and the spots, and that's a whole nother video. But today, we're going to cover the bare bones tools and then also the upgraded tools that you will need to make your projects look a little more professional. The list of tools that you're going to need is not very big at all. First, I recommend a quick change utility knife. Get spare blades, that way you don't have to worry about stropping a knife. Don't use an X-Acto knife because those blades dull very fast. And also, I've found out that my cuts, anyways, are not always as clean and straight as what they could be when I was using an X-Acto knife. Use a utility knife. They're cheap. You can get them at the Dollar Tree. Spare blades, a pack of 50 is like $7. So, utility knife. That's what I use to cut all my leather with. Next is just a small square. You can pick one of these 7x12, 8x12 squares up at Harbor Freight. Use this instead of a ruler. It keeps your edges of your work all nice and square. When you use a ruler, you got to be very careful with your measurements. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a square, but it's going to be a lopsided square, and things may not match up quite right. Use a square. That way you know when you cut, your piece is always square. Thread. I got two different types here. I got actual wax thread and a small spool, and then I have artificial sinew. The artificial sinew, you're better off if you order it off of Etsy from a source that you got on Etsy, because you're looking at about $7 a spool for like, I think it's like 500 yards or 1,000 yards, something like that, 750 yards. I can't remember it. It's a lot for $7. If you buy a couple different spools of it, the shipping all gets piled up into one. Shipping's normally a little bit steep on that at $15, but if you turn around and, or maybe it's $8 on shipping and $15 total if you buy one spool. If you buy multiple spools, the shipping gets spread out. Makes it a lot more affordable than buying it from one of the leather stores. Next, you will need a sewing needle, stitching needle, leather needle. I prefer the ones without the sharp points on them. Two reasons. One, with the sharp points, when you're running it through your holes, sometimes it'll poke the leather and it doesn't want to come through cleanly or very fast or efficiently. The second, I had a pack of Glover's needles that I tried one time, and after running one of those sharp Glover needles about 1/4 of an inch into my finger for the third or fourth time, I decided it was probably time to go back to the dull needles. It doesn't feel good when you run one of those needles through your finger. These ones here, they're nice and dull. They get through the holes nice. I haven't had any issues with them. You need a pack of those. Next, your pricking irons. I use the Craft Tool pricking irons. I use the 2-prong and the 4-prong. The 2-prong allows me to turn corners. I got the 3mm pricking irons because space for stitching, I found, or I was suggested to, and with the work I've done, I found that your stitches aren't too close, so you're not stitching forever, but they're not spaced out so far that you feel like it's a weak stitch. So I recommend the 3mm, the 2 and the 4-prong. 2-prong allows me to turn corners, like I said a minute ago, and the 4-prong is when I get on the straight stretches, I can chew up some ground. One of the things that I've noticed is you got to make sure that they stay sharp, but also the more prongs, the harder you got to hit it to get through the leather. You're making more holes at one time, so you got to hit it a little bit harder, and sometimes that creates more noise when you're in a noise-sensitive environment. The 2-prong, I found that light taps goes right through the leather. Less prongs, less force required. There's that. My dead blow hammer. This one right here, I like the weight of this one. I've used it for tooling. I've used it for the pricking irons. I have never had a problem out of it. I've had this one for 2 years. It's a little beat up, but it's still going strong. No problems out of it. Now, with the exception of the pricking irons and the thread and the needle, all this stuff here, well, there really isn't much left. The square and the dead blow hammer can be purchased at Harbor Freight, and you're looking at like $6, I think, for the 2. So it's actually relatively inexpensive if you're just going with the bare bones tools. By going with the bare bones tools, like I said, I can make a belt, I can make a purse, I can make a holster, I can make wallets out of these tools right here. I don't need anything else as far as bare bones. For the people asking, oh, what about your pattern, or what about edging and all that stuff? That stuff there just makes your product look more professional, more nice, more appealing. This right here will get your product made. Now, for upgrades on tools, what I would recommend is a wing divider or an edge groover. These two tools can do the same thing. The edge groover cuts a fine line, and it uses the bar to trace the side of the leather, while the cutting edge actually cuts a groove, and that allows your stitches to sit down inside the leather, makes it look more nice, more professional look. But that's a $15 tool. Wing dividers, depending upon where you get them, I got mine at a pack at Harbor Freight, and I think it was like $8 for the pack. I got a set of wing dividers, calipers, all that other good crap with it. But these right here, same thing. You put one side along the edge of the leather, and the other side makes a nice groove line for you to use as a guideline for your pricking irons to cut your stitching holes. Edge bevelers. When your leather is all 90 degrees on the corners of it, at the edges of it and everything, it looks just a little too homemade. So a lot of people like the edge bevel, run the edge bevel over the side of it. It kind of just rounds off the sharp points a little bit. I got a little project that I'm working on here. As you can see, they're just 90-degree corners. Once I get this all put together, I'll run my edge beveler over the edge of it, and it will round those corners off a little bit, kind of soften them up, make them look a little nicer. They come in different sizes and different brands. Start out with the smaller size. I think this one here is a number 2, and it will just barely take off anything off the edge of it. This one here is a number 4, and it's a little bit more aggressive. If you edge bevel both sides of the leather with the number 4 here, say 6-ounce leather, you'll almost come up with a knife point edge on your leather. You want it a little bit softer than that. So I would recommend actually getting a 3. When I got these, I had no idea what I was getting at the time. I just knew I needed an edge beveler. Didn't know that they came in different sizes. And I got stuff that it still works for me, but I probably need to pick up a number 3. Hole punch. Real simple. You can get the rotary punches for it, but problem with the rotary punches is you are limited to where you can punch holes for how far you can get the jaws of the rotary punch in. This one I got at Hobby Lobby. It has multiple heads to it that just unscrew off for different sizes, screw back on. If you use the Hobby Lobby discount online, you get it 40% off. I think it knocks it down to like $9 or $10, something like that, for the kit, and it comes with like 6 heads. Scratch all. That'll scratch out nice little lines in your leather to keep you on track where you need to go when you're tracing out your patterns, all that stuff. Also, when you run into some difficult stitching, you can use it to line up your stitch holes to get that needle through. 1-inch foam brush. This right here for when you're gluing or dyeing. You can buy a pack of 25 at a time at Walmart. And these things here, I go through a bunch of them. But they really hold the glue and the dye. And it makes it really indispensable. Quick and easy. Also, it controls the glue and the dye when you're applying it. So you don't often run into a whole bunch of overage, drippage, or uneven application. So I really like using the 1-inch foam brushes. Seamstress tape measure, that right there for doing belts, nice and long, great for that. You can use a regular tape measure. A strap cutter. If you do not have one of these, you can get by without it. However, this tool, once you get it, you will be singing praises for it all along. Great for cutting out belts, great for cutting out straps for purses. It doesn't matter how long the leather is. Has a nice straight edge on the side of it for you to run your leather on down there. Great tool. Once you get one, you'll never go back to using a ruler or taking measurements and doing the long cut. This tool right here has saved me so much time. Thread snips. Scissors and your utility knife will work for cutting the thread. However, if you get thread snips, you can actually get down there right at the edge of it and snip it off nice. These things are super sharp. Cuts the thread really good. And then the safety skyler. These things right here, once you take the time to practice to use them, are a lifesaver. They're great. However, it takes practice to learn how to use this device right here. When you're using thick leather and you're trying to stitch a corner, it's best if you scythe it down a little bit. Once again, lots of practice to use this thing. It doesn't seem like it should take that much practice. I mean, you put it up next to the leather and you pull on it and it shaves the leather down. It's more of a finesse practice that you got to use with this. Because you will turn around and shave too much leather. You'll cut the edge of your leather in odd spots. So it looks all jagged and wavy, and it takes time. But that's my list of tools to get you started. I got the basic set, and then I got the set to make your stuff look nice and professional. As with all things, there's many more things out there that you can use. There's great tools. I got a bunch of different tools in my shop that I could go over with you, but these are the bare basics that I use on just about any and every project. For patterns, I don't go out and use acrylic or any of that stuff. I buy poster board. You can get it at just about any store, hobby store, Dollar General, Walmart, whatever. The big poster board that your kids uses for collages at school. That's the stuff I use. It holds up well. It traces well. And then once you get your pattern worked out on there, when you cut it out, it cuts easy. Put it on leather. When you trace it onto the leather, you don't got to worry about crinkling it up like printer paper or that stuff. So that's what I use. I go through a bunch of it. And it normally lasts 4 or 5 projects before the edges get a little soft, and then I got to replace it. But for glue, I know a bunch of leather workers use barges, and I've heard it's a good glue. I haven't used it yet because I use wood weld contact cement. This stuff here has worked out really well for me. It's easy to find. I find it all the time at Walmart, Lowe's, and Ace Hardware, and a bunch of places like that. It's all over the place, easy to find. Barges is a little bit harder for me to find. I don't know about for other people. I know I can order it online, but I like going in and talking to people at the stores and all that stuff, so I just stick with the weld wood. So that's what I got. Guys like the video or whatever, hit like, subscribe to my YouTube channel at Worthwhile Leather, and have a good day.